I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I think we're good to go.
Okay, one real quick thing to start this out for everybody's knowledge and forthwith, and there's no misunderstandings. I am not ignoring your questions about the bank or about GFG. I'm currently trying to get Hunter on here next week so he can answer all your GFG questions. Anna and I do not have all the answers. Information she gives you in the update is all the answers we've got on the bank. So carrying on and take it away with your update, Anna.
Yeah, please stop it. Just stop it. We're not here to service your individual accounts. We don't know the history of your individual accounts. We cannot possibly do the job of, shepherding and minding your separate accounts. Your accounts are with the bank. They're not with the government. Okay? So any questions you have to get the information from Global Family. And Global Family is a bit overwhelmed at the moment because they are opening up entire systems within the bank, and just yesterday opened up the vendor portal with over 30,000 vendors that you can now shop with. Now that should be enough staggering information for 1 week, and a lot of wonderful steps forward made this week. So that vendor portal will only grow as more businesses join the movement away from incorporated legal fiction entities and their use. And you'll be able to do transactions at will with mom and pop businesses all over the planet. So just keep your shirts on and, keep your powder dry, as they say. Yes, this is an undertaking which has never been done before. It's very large. It's geared to serve 8 billion people worldwide. So if you stop and think about that for a minute, and the complexities of being able to do currency exchanges in real time, being able to track every single transaction across such a vast customer base, and to be able to do this in real time, it's amazing. It's really, truly amazing, number one, that such a thing could be done, and that it could be done by us using comparatively very limited resources and very limited personnel to get the job done. You have to remember that the Federation of States is still in kind of a semi-mothballed state of being. We are alive, we're functioning, but we're functioning as volunteers. Nobody gets paid. We are having to contribute all our own supplies, all our own office space, all of our own any kind of material support, whether it's travel money to go somewhere and get something done, whether it's court fees to introduce counterclaims. It's all on us. And so, don't expect that this is just all going to be lickety-clickety and be standing there treating this like you would a commercial corporation, because it's not that. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't have the same kinds of resources. It doesn't stand under the same kind of law. And that's why we are doing this, is so that we can have a economy which is based on reality, on honor, on common sense, and fairness, and all those things that everybody says they want, but somehow fails to understand that, yes, there is going to be a considerable difference in how we do business. I'm sorry. And how we do business. And until we are really booted up and have the resources and the personnel. Sorry for the sneezing fit, but until that happens, we're going to have to just punt and do the best we can. And you need to be patient and to go along and do your best. And that's just the way it is. Anyone who comes to GFG with an entitlement attitude, like, this is my money and I want it now.
My money and I need it now.
It's my money and I need it now.
It's my money and I need it now.
It's my money and I need it now. It's my money and I need it now.
Anyone who comes to GFG with an entitlement attitude, like, this is my money and I want it now, hasn't got the whole picture in mind and doesn't really realize that, number one, nobody here owes them anything. We don't get a government paycheck. We don't owe you the sweat of our labor. We don't owe you anything at all. We're other Americans who have volunteered to step forward and are doing our best to return money that's owed to the American people to the American people. Very simple. But at the same time, our lack of resources and lack of personnel means that we are not going to be able to instantaneously answer all your questions. We don't have a huge customer service contingent all trained and ready online. And we aren't even going to try to pretend that that's something we can do at this stage of our development. The vast majority of people who have accounts set up in GFG are now able to use them. Simple as that. But if you're having trouble with your account, if your money hasn't been properly credited or you think it hasn't been properly credited, if you are experiencing difficulty in accessing your account, these are things that will be taken in order by those at GFG who are working to get to each and every question. And in the meantime, we will have people from GFG who are invited to come here and answer questions directly. But be patient. Just be patient. Be grateful that GFG exists, that we're making these strides forward. Understand that there are going to be bugs. There are going to be problems with the system. It's never been done before. This whole thing is brand new. And of course, we're going to have some glitches. Of course, there will be bugs in the system. But we have a system, and the system works. And really, as a percentage, the number of problems that we have are small. I realize that if you have a problem, it's a big problem for you. But in a statistical analysis, GFG is up and it's performing very well. And that's something that, from my side of it, looking at it as a manager of a system, I can give it high marks right out of the gate. Especially in view of the fact that we didn't have billions upon billions of dollars to spend on something like the QFS system. We did not have scores of people lined up and ready to do high-tech and very valuable services for free. We just had a few Americans who had the discipline and the skill, who stepped up and did it all for us, for everybody. I compared the GFG movement to the RAF in Britain during World War II. Not everybody could fly, and yet the bombs were falling. And the RAF, those who could fly, took to the skies, and in dogfight after dogfight, day after day, week after week, month after month, they got into the air and they fought. They fought the German Luftwaffe, which was superior to them in virtually every way. And they won because they simply didn't give up, because they were willing to die to the last man. And that, my friends, is the kind of debt that we owe the IT personnel and the tech people who put together Global Family Group's bank system. It's literally just a few people with a lot of talent and a great deal of determination that has made this possible and which continues to make it possible. So that's the bank, our bank, and that's what's happening this week. You're gaining access to over 30,000 vendors. You're able to transact and use your AFD and Heritage dollar prepaid credit, and you're off and running for the most part. Let's put it this way. Most of you are off and running. I know that some of you are already engaged in real estate transactions that you're being able to enter into through the new vendor portal. Some of you are already doing things like consumer purchases of new cars and things of that nature. Really, it's a wonderful thing, and it's a wonderful day for us. I'm sure that Hunter is extremely busy this week, so we didn't ask him to be here tonight, but we will ask him or someone from GFG to be here.
Actually, I did ask him, but he couldn't because of what all launched.
Right. That's what I mean, that we'll get to him and he'll get to us a little bit further down the track. Next week, we'll try to get him or someone from GFG who can answer questions for GFG about GFG. And in the meantime, please, I know everybody has 1,000 questions about GFG right now. We're not the people to answer all the technical questions. We don't have any information about your individual accounts. We can't tell you why your account is or isn't opening according to your passcodes or any of that. We don't have that information. We don't do that. So please just drop all those kinds of questions for tonight and wait until someone from GFG is here and actually answer you. All right, so that was a very good call, Shannon. Please hold those questions for next week. There are a great many things going on in the world. We have to at least gloss over some of the highlights. One of the biggest things that happened today was that the U.S. Treasury declared that the U.S. is bankrupt again. And by this we mean the USA Incorporated is bankrupt. And this is the result of some accounting and actual efforts at transparency by the Trump administration to do the accounting on the U.S. Treasury. And they found, as similar to all the things that have gone on with Doge, they found that the U.S. Treasury, the U.S. Treasury, has $6.06 trillion in assets, and it has $47.78 trillion in liabilities as of September 30th of this past year. And that does not include what they term unfunded debt. Unfunded debt means there's literally no appropriation standing within the system to make the payments that are lawful and legal requirements, such as Social Security, Medicare, and pension liabilities owed to federal workers. And so when you crunch all the math down, you find that good old Uncle Sam is 41.72 trillion in the red, and it has approximately 8 times more debt than it has assets posted. Now, before you get terminally depressed and pull the panic button and ripcord and go, realize that this is a corporation, and the only way that it can go bankrupt is because it is a corporation. So basically, a corporation is the only entity that can go bankrupt, because corporations are technically owned by the government. And this is something I've been teaching everybody for years, and I've pointed out how people unwittingly give their businesses to the government by registering them. Remember, always, when you register something, you are giving away your ownership interest in it. You are abandoning it to the tender mercies of the government in the case of corporations that you set up and run through the auspices of that government. So as you think about the U.S. Treasury's announcement, it's evident that yes, indeed, they are insolvent, at least with the information that is on the books right now, which may change rather dramatically in the next few weeks. But it is a corporation. And when it goes bankrupt, all of its debts fall forward on the taxpayers. So these are called public debts because the corporation, which is a government services corporation, makes its money from the public. It duns you and me for its operating expenses and for all of the services that it provides under delegation of authority. This is a recurrent scenario where these government subcontractors that are all incorporated build up a huge debt, a huge unpayable amount of debt. And then they go bankrupt, and it's all presto changeo. We take off the mask, we draw back the curtain, and it turns out that Uncle Sam never had a pot, and that you're on the hook to pay his debts because he incorporated as a United States corporation, and you purportedly are the citizens of the United States responsible for the operations of the U.S. Treasury and all the other United States corporations that are written out as United States upper and lower case. So, if you hear about something going bankrupt, number one, know for a fact that it's not our country. It's not us going bankrupt. It's not our states going bankrupt. It's no organization that we are responsible for going bankrupt. It's a foreign corporation. It's going bankrupt fair and square. And the people responsible for paying its bills in bankruptcy are foreigners too. The problem is that we can each be mistaken as a foreigner. And that's why we go through the entire process of reclaiming our birthright status and making these recordings in public and making our declarations so that we have a leg to stand on and can actually say in advance of any claim that no, we are not commercial corporations owned by the municipal government of the District of Columbia. No, we are not indentured servants of the British territorial government. No, we are not slaves working for the Holy Roman Empire in any capacity. And so the whole thing that we've done so far with you in getting you to declare your status and record it properly is a matter of trying to protect you and your assets by asserting on the public record your correct political status as American state nationals and state citizens. Now, there have been many misunderstandings because people, number one, don't know what the word citizen means. Citizen means that you have an obligation to serve the government. Actually, the only obligation that Americans have toward any government is to keep the peace. But we do not have any obligation to pay the government's debts. We don't have any obligation to serve the government in any capacity whatsoever. So there, right in the front, laying it out for you, is why you cannot be a citizen if you do not have mutually consensual, that is, obligations to perform. These are called performance obligations. And they have asserted that we all have performance obligations and obligations without the nicety of telling us about their very convenient little scheme to essentially conscript us into the service of the British King and the Pope. It's a very twisted thing that's happened here. It's very fraudulent, very purposeful, always aiming at coercive power over individuals and whole communities, and also aiming at unjust enrichment. So take that for what you will. We are along in the process of bringing forward our claims, our identities, and our demands. So we are making very good headway, as fast as anyone could hope to. And I'm very proud of all the people from not just this country, but people all over the world who are joining together to put an end to the Babylonian system. Or if you want to call it that, the Roman Venetian system. This has been a very long, drawn-out battle, and it has been fought in drawing rooms and chambers of judges and public forums for many years. And my hat is again really taken off, and I wish to draw attention to the thousands, and I do mean thousands of Americans who over the past 165 years have never given up, have devoted vast amounts of time and expertise to the study of documents and history and knowledge that was kept from the general public. These Americans who did that research, again, as volunteers, unpaid, largely undirected, and unsupported, have nonetheless managed to save your heritage for you. We are approaching a time now where the money is going to start flowing back into the coffers. They rolled all of our funds into what are known as FedNow accounts in July of 2023. And this was something that hardly anyone noticed happening, and it certainly was not recorded or discussed freely in the mainstream press. In 2023, in July, people who had regular bank accounts and institutions with names like First National Bank of Alaska or Raintree Bank or, First Federal Credit Union, all of these institutions have been insolvent since the 1930s, but they were allowed to remain operating so long as, one, they did not put any depositors' money at risk, and two, they could not claim to have any bank assets to invest in issuing mortgages and loans and things of that nature. This resulted in, it was one of those supposed to be safety measures that were put in place in the 1930s, largely by Senator Glass, same Glass of the Glass-Steagall Act, okay? Trying to protect people from having their money, we call it being bailed in or bailed out, respectively, depending on which side of the transaction you're on. Having depositors' money seized by banks is what he was trying to prevent, and has thus far succeeded. We can't take any of that for granted, however, because the Congress that we have operating now is a notably lawless and reckless organization. So they can pull all sorts of skullduggery and try to get around the facts and try to cheat you, the public, again. Anyway, they converted all the local bank accounts of individuals to the FedNow system in 2023. And they did that so that they would have federal control of private assets in the states of the Union and would have the control, the de facto ownership of all of the accounts belonging to Americans. Isn't that sweet of them? And they made just another one of those little tiny print announcements in a brochure that the local bank sent out to you back in July of 2023. And hidden in that fine print was a description of how they were going to convert all of the individual accounts to FedNow accounts, and that all these accounts, which you think of as being local and within your state and all of that, would actually be federal accounts in the Federal Reserve System. So you have a Federal Reserve account that you don't even know that exists. And it should be of great concern to you that you do. Number one, because you did not ask to have your deposits in a Federal Reserve Bank. You probably pretty deliberately put your money on deposit with a local bank, thinking that a local bank would be one, more honest, two, more accountable, and three, safer. Which is good enough reasoning as far as it goes. What it does not take into consideration is the desperation of those charged with protecting the U.S. Treasury and otherwise providing physical protection and superior intelligence gathering for the members of the assembly. We've been very lucky. I mean, very lucky that we have been able to build a tandem system that is competent to fulfill our needs and the needs of other living people throughout the world. And that this will shortly become also a communications forum, a means by which you will be able to, for example, conduct transactions, non-consumer transactions with other living people in other corners of the world. So look forward to all of that and realize that we have come a very long way with no debt. Why? Because all our people are volunteers. Why? Because there is no U.S. Congress of the federal Congress that's supposed to be the one doing the land jurisdiction duties exists. We haven't got a continental Congress yet. All we have that is sufficient to do our business is the Federation of States and their members and states of the Union. So if you see all this talk about the United States government being in bankruptcy and being insolvent and being forced in Chapter 7 involuntary bankruptcy, all of this stuff is comparatively a smokescreen. And what we really need to keep our eyes on, like hawks, are our assets. So let me give you an important and fairly universal example. We did all of these MOSI transactions beginning, I think, in 2017, even before we actually brought the state assemblies into session. We took advantage of the provisions of federal code to reclaim our natural birthright political status, which is that of American state nationals. And we I'm sorry, I'm very tired. I didn't sleep at all last night. I just lost the thread entirely. It's tough to be human. We were talking about the change to the FedNow accounts and how they will roll up all those FedNow accounts under the bankrupted Treasury. And they will be held as trust accounts. And so this is something that's going on in the background. You don't know anything about it. You're not told anything about it, but you're kind of standing on the railroad tracks with a freight train rushing toward you, because their debt will, unless it is deflected, will land on your shoulders, and you're already carrying more than enough of debt that isn't your own. So part of the job that I have this next week is to object to the presumption that the bankrupt U.S. Treasury or any other foreign British territorial or municipal corporation is our responsibility. The only people that are responsible for those corporations are those who created them. And that is the solid known fact. So, nonetheless, if we don't raise our hands and object to being assumed to be British territorial citizens or citizens of the Holy Roman Empire operating in the United States, then we can be victimized. We can be stuck paying off the $41 trillion in liabilities and debts, funded and non-funded, that this government has accumulated. It's sort of like the cost of the war in Iran. Believe me, I am nobody's favorite person except for you guys, because I'm standing in the way and saying, no, you know very well that presidents do not declare wars. So this is not a war. This is a mercenary conflict. 2, you know very well that Israel and Germany and Britain have paid Mr. Trump a mercenary contract to attack Iran. Now, I'm not privy to the details of the contract. I just know and can easily observe that it exists. And now Mr. Trump has gone ahead and spent $11 billion that he doesn't have. He literally doesn't have it, but he spent it on the contingency that the Congress would be willing to give him $200 billion of credit to carry on the war beyond this point. Thus far, the U.S. Senate is saying no, and that is their prerogative. If they fail to declare the war in so many days, I forget exactly how many days it is, but if they don't correct this situation, and if we don't correct the situation, it becomes an accepted principle that it was accepted by acquiescence. And this is what they've played their cards on ever since 1865. They kind of threw up their hands and said, we don't know who anybody is anymore. We can't tell friend from foe. We don't know elderly neighbor from some sort of foreign agent in our midst, okay? And we've been battling the same battle ever since, that with the elements of impersonation, false identities, identity theft, personage, which is a crime that it literally impersonates someone as someone or something else. And then there are the crimes of barratry that we've had to fight, which barratry is another crime peculiar to the world of corporations, in which a district attorney or other person in this system will send you correspondence of a kind that seems to require a reply. Actually, they're doing what is called soliciting. They're soliciting your business. When they show up on your doorstep and swagger around and accuse you of nebulous things and arrest you and things of this nature, they're shooting in the dark. They don't actually have a contract with you. You're not their employee. And they have the burden of proof. So things are getting harder and harder for these miscreants, I will say, to do things like detain you for the right to travel, exercising that right, or force you to pay a mortgage that's actually owed by the bank, and which beyond the bank is owed by the U.S. or the USA corporation. And we are all making a lot of progress toward having a better grasp of what the U.S. is and what the U.S. can do or not do in terms of natural resource supplies and governing agreements that they already have on record with organizations like the United Nations and all these, what would you even call them? They're like political supporters, okay, which are outside the government system, but nonetheless pay taxes to the foreign government as a condition of their employment and their servitude as what? Citizens. Now, there have been people who've been out there claiming that no such thing as a national level of our state government exists, and they're trying to say that we, number one, don't have the right to use our own names because the British Crown Corporation copyrighted them about 3 weeks after we were all respectively born. And then they come back at us and they say that we're responsible for the bankruptcies and debts, including the so-called unfunded debts, because our employees never had any money to begin with. They basically have kited checks to the tune of $41 trillion. And I hope everybody who just heard that is staring at their TV or their computer monitor and they're thinking, boy, these guys were serious. They were intent on misrepresenting us, mislabeling us, stealing our identity, including our national identity, and basically working substitution schemes and other forms of fraud against the people who have been their loyal employers. How much this was known to people on the street or in the position of being, fairly low-level bureaucrats, we don't know. I would presume that most of the people working in state offices are not privy to the plans and coercive activities of the owners of the bankrupt corporation. So all we can do is stand our ground and be persistent and be correct. We are working in a world where simply telling the truth and being competent to do basic things is becoming an issue. I don't know about you, but I feel competent to travel from here to the grocery store and back. So all these fine points of definitions at law versus what's real, it's really pretty simple. Our government is helped by the fact that it's pretty simple. And we cling to that structure because we don't want to be the odd guy out who failed to correct his own problems and created problems for others as a result. Okay? So, the other thing that deserves some mention, in my view, is the war in Iran. And technically, it is not a war, it's a mercenary conflict. And it's illegal for Britain to be over there commandeering American resources in order to promote a war with Iran. Now, I don't know how many of you know this, but Iran is a very popular and rich country. It has approximately 90 million people. This makes it 10 times the size of Israel. And although the people on the streets are poor, the circumstance lends itself to more and more involvement. I think you can see how the war is sort of self-engendering, and how people who have been pushed to the limit for a long time are responding to the situation with the most modern and most deadly things that they have in their arsenals. And really, in terms of the current situation, it doesn't matter if you have a nuclear bomb and you explode a nuclear bomb, or here's the backside of it, what if you explode somebody else's nuclear bomb? I was very startled when I saw the diplomatic news that apparently we have agreed to fund the war in Iran without knowing anything about any such accommodation. And we've had to actually raise an objection to the whole fight, which is not authorized and is not, in our opinion, something that could be compared to the Monroe Doctrine. So we've got our share of court cases, legal briefs, correspondences, diplomatic efforts, and all the above to bring on new people and to keep control of our own banking accounts and to make sure that we don't get stuck paying for things that we don't benefit from. Since the Second World War, America and Americans have been the go-to people. If they want something done, the Europeans tell the Americans to go do it. And more than half the time, the same European governments don't pay the Americans anything. They just expect us to front it all, every good deed. They apparently think of us as a combination older brother and a pesky little sister. We are not that familiar to many people worldwide. And one of the biggest challenges that we face is that we have to become familiar to everyone. So you'll be seeing an effort here, and you'll understand the problems better as we go into the next couple of weeks. The war, quote unquote, in Iran is, in our view, just another illegal mercenary conflict that was fanned into flames deliberately and while knowing the limitations of the commander-in-chief's office. Anyway, there's a lot going on, and a lot of diplomatic efforts, a lot of technical efforts, a lot of record-keeping efforts. Nearly every week I get questions about the offices of the public notary, and we get questions about how individuals can fight back and actually get their MOSI payments paid. Well, according to Terry, this past week, several MOSI payments actually arrived and were good at the bank. So some people, as we have seen as a pattern throughout, some people are getting their MOSI payments that they applied for back in 2007, some of them, but they are at least getting paid out now. So don't run willy-nilly and get all upset and think that everything is so urgent simply because it seems urgent when you watch the TV. If you want to maintain your equilibrium and your balance and your happiness through this time, I have one big piece of advice. Turn off the TV. Turn off the radios. 90% of what these people are talking about does not concern us because it is something to do with one of the federal subcontractors and/or it's something that has regulatory effect. And they can get in a lot of trouble for messing with us and treating us as, say, municipal citizens, when in fact we've already told them that we're not. So all this paperwork is necessary and good, and it's there to protect you and your family. And if you allow it to function as it's meant to function, you will find that it's very powerful. So, shall we take some questions?
Okie dokie. First question. Is our inheritance connected to the Torah or the Bible?
Well, I guess the correct way to say that is that it is connected to both. The Torah, or the Pentateuch, is the first 5 books of the Bible, first 5 books of the Old Testament. And in Genesis, the first book of these 5 books making up the Bible and Old Testament times, there is a verse at Genesis 1, verse 26, which says that we are essentially caretakers of this planet. We're supposed to be taking care of it, the same way a farmer takes care of a cow or a gardener takes care of a crop. We are collectively responsible for the earth. And this created what's known as the divine trust. Now, this first divine trust that you find in Genesis 1:26 is just what it says it is. There's no frills, there's no big explanations, there's just a claim. And that claim is that the earth is the asset that the donor, the creator, is entrusting to us as caretakers. It's the same tripartite contract process that you see repeated over and over and over, where you have a donor, you have a trustee, and you have a beneficiary. And so, yes, the divine trust created at Genesis 1:26 does underlie our banking and civil functions entirely. Short form, yes.
Okie dokie. Long way for short way. All right. Banking question. My family and I are experiencing backlash from all levels of law enforcement, state, city, and county. Sorry. All this streaming from me attending and speaking at town council meetings. Also receiving traffic summons and challenging jurisdiction in court. I experienced crazy intimidation tactics where the courtroom was cleared out, then my name was called. I was surrounded by approximately 10 plus deputies, screamed at for asking the clerk questions, then followed outside and up the sidewalk while they escorted the judge to her car. I never did anything to provoke them. My mail is arriving opened, and I'm not receiving important documents at all. When the informed delivery email notifications I receive daily states otherwise. My children are being harassed. I have one son that went to court with me, and now he's being pulled over and given 4 tickets each time on 3 occasions in a 10-day time frame. Do you have some insight on how to address this matter? We have already tried rescinding them within 3 days.
Well, you're sticking up like a sore thumb and poking the bear, which is what I have generally suggested we don't need to do, because unless it's a matter of life and death, it's not important enough to spend our energy on. So that said, if you had kept a lower profile, you probably wouldn't be having the trouble that you're having. In our experience, you are most likely to have that kind of harassment when some relatively uninformed and low-level some manner of officer of the court decides that you're a threat. And they have all sorts of provisions under federal military code to deal with threats. But because all this is being done by a group of retired, high-ranking, for the most part, commissioned officers, there's no way to make them accountable. There is no way to promote a good, steady basis for business operations with them. And we're stuck just having to take each case as it comes. And that includes your cases. Now, I personally believe that the fallacies and the illegal pronouncements of policies, corporation policies, as some form of law, legislated law, to be disingenuous. There are no American state nationals in the sense that we use that term. And there are various reasons why, but they will say there are no state nationals. There's not such a thing as American state nationals, because that does not apply, and it does not appear in federal code. The only American state national in federal code are the populations of these outlying territorial, quote unquote, insular states. It's not even talking about us. All the motor vehicle title codes that are about having to have such and such licenses and having to register your vehicle, your car, as a vehicle, as a commercial vehicle, which is quite a different thing than a private car. You're being coerced and lockstepped into accepting these licenses. But what ultimately needs to happen is for the licenses and the licensees to work it out, so that we're no longer internally fighting among ourselves.
Okay, to who or what authority does Anna send her notices regarding Trump's mercenary conflicts with Iran, Venezuela, or Cuba? And what authority do these institutions have to free the American name from the U.S.A. Incorporated British Territorial Service Contractor?
Well, as our trustees, they have an absolute service contract with us. It's called the Constitutions, all three federal constitutions. But especially and particularly those constitutions that were originally issued to that particular government services vendor. The notices go out to the Secretary of State, which he's the officer that is named in British parliamentary law, which is an odd thing because we don't normally think of ourselves as having anything to do with British parliamentary law, and why should we look that up? Well, it's because in 1864, the Parliament usurped upon our lawful government and has been secretly running a large percentage of our business ever since. Well, we just need to stand back a little, wait a little, plan a little, and we will come through this just fine. I hope that everybody is maintaining their positive attitude and getting up every day and doing the best you can and consciously directing your attention toward positive things. So this is one of those areas where we need that kind of focus on what's positive and true. We need to make any controversies go away to the extent that we can avoid them. And if a controversy is already stirred up and you've got multiple levels of state and franchise corporations after your hide, then basically the best thing you can do is a good offense is a good defense, and a good defense is a good offense. you use their own laws against them. And we have plenty of material regarding driving offenses. As for the harassment that you suffer at the hands of multiple lawfare institutions, that is more personal. If you can identify the person that is most responsible for causing these allegations against you, that is the person that you most likely need to file a counterclaim on to get them out of your hair and acting appropriately toward their employer. And then bring that forward to them that, hey, I don't have a contract with you. You don't have a contract with me. The British Crown Corporation needs to give me my name and recognize that it's not their name, and so on, so that we can dig out of this morass of ignorance and misrepresentation and credit card theft and all the other numerous ills that have resulted from building our schools and thinking that these institutions could make up the difference for parents not being there for their kids. They can't. They won't. They don't. Our schools were supposed to educate children about their true history, and they were supposed to give our children useful life skills that would transfer over into their own lives down the road. And none of that was done. Absolutely none of it. We're still in the process of assessing the damage and either rebooting our valid constitutions or getting rid of those encumbrances that no longer apply for whatever reason. It's a very daunting job. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of reading, and it's a lot of correspondence. And it goes straight to the U.S. Secretary of State, who was named by the British Parliament in 1864, I believe, as the contact and the person responsible for the diplomatic connection between their government and ours. So that's why I send to the Secretary of State. And that's why you have to be alert to know which version of the United States the corporation that's being bankrupted is organized in. For example, is USA Inc. a Delaware corporation? Is it an LLC formed in London? Is it a foundation that has usurped upon the common law trust indenture? All these different aspects come up and reveal themselves with different topics, but across the whole range of topics, you find that it really is true. There are probably 18 federal institutions that people have trusted all these years that have done things which are considered criminal. And we're going through that sort out process where everybody's record is being examined, everybody's criminal record is being examined. Some pretty tough vetting practices and procedures have been put in place. But anyway, we are trying our best to make sure that the people that are involved in our operations are up to stuff. And otherwise, we don't have control of it. Things we can bring forward diplomatic complaints, we can refuse accommodations, we can clearly object to being named as citizenries of these foreign corporations, which is a key point. And we can help ourselves by filing counterclaims, such as the mutual offset credit exemption claim, because as the system has shown us on repeated times, when these guys get bankrupt, they're back up and functioning under a slightly different name quicker than you can imagine. And they are also, as it turns out, somewhat preventing us from bringing forward counterclaims, which is another whole area of research that is, not only on my desk, but on the desks of many Federation officials, where we now know and have it pinned down to a single facility that is using transponders to widen its net, if you will. And we have to deal with both the parent companies and the franchises. Shannon?
Okay, I've had 7 people say they see you fading, Anna.
I am.
And
There's no doubt about it.
I'm gonna pull the plug on it because I'm
Well,
agreeing with them. I can see you falling asleep while you're talking.
yeah, I am just literally exhausted, folks. I have been up for 2 nights in a row with no sleep, and very nearly a third night of no sleep. Well, I got 2 hours of the third night. So I am just at the other ends of being able to function here, and I'm sorry, but sometimes that's just the way it goes.
And like I said, I did not ignore everyone's questions about the bank. Once I'm putting them in a separate folder, and once I get Hunter or someone of knowledge here to speak on that, I will hit them with every one of those questions. But for the next week, I'd recommend please don't shoot me bank questions.
Yeah, the bank is the bank, and the federation is the federation. And please, everybody, try to stay positive, try to stay focused on all the good things that are happening and not be fearful of all the bad things that are happening. Remember that a lot of this stuff that's going on literally does not concern us, and our only role is to make sure that it doesn't concern us by drawing very firm lines in the sand regarding our identity and, basically who we are and what we want and what we stand for. And I think each and every one of us on this call tonight have the materials and the abilities to do precisely that. I've gotten several really good court case reviews and very good court decisions in the last 3 weeks. So there's a lot to be happy for on that front. We have our bank up and rolling. Something to be happy for on that front. I will say the remonstrances that we've made that have allowed us to escape being the secondaries for these corporations and having to pay their debts and their bills. That is going very well too. So we have a lot to be thankful for, and we have a lot of people to be grateful to, and certainly include yourselves in that roster. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your support for all of this. Thank you for putting up with one very tired fiduciary tonight. And, like my friend Fritz always says, stay on the sunny side of the street. Think good thoughts, be positive, be kind, and all of that will come back to you. Good night, guys.